All right, pre-calculus. In this video, we are going to talk about the types of numbers that we have. That way, when I use my vocabulary, my math vocabulary, you know what I'm talking about. Now, this video is very, very basic. This is something you probably learned in the 5th or 6th grade, depending on where you went to school. All right, so we have real numbers over here versus non-real numbers or imaginary numbers over here. I am going to talk about non-real numbers first because we're not going to spend a lot of time on these. We will talk about these later in the year, but your imaginary numbers include things like taking the square root of a negative. All right, for instance, the square root of -1 is equal to I, indicating that it is imaginary. You cannot graph the square root of a negative because it just exists, outside of the physical coordinate plane. Imaginary, get it? Okay, so we're going to concentrate on our real numbers because our real numbers is where all of our most important numbers lie. Those are the ones we use the most. We are going to use imaginary numbers, just not right now. So let's start with something very, very basic. When you first learn your numbers, you learn to count, right? So your counting numbers, also known as your natural numbers, well, you start to count with what? 1, right? So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. So your counting numbers or your natural numbers, that's always where we're going to start, right here. Now, the next set of numbers that you learn about are your whole numbers. So your whole numbers include your counting or natural numbers plus 0. All right, so your whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. Then we start talking about integers. And integers, that's where we bring in negatives. So when I refer to an integer, I'm talking about the negative numbers, 0, and the positive numbers. Those are the ones I'm talking about. So that's why I'm nesting it this way, because within your integers, you have the whole numbers and then the natural numbers. And then, of course, we have our rational numbers. Rational numbers are necessary to include our fractions. Okay, things that can be written like 3/2, they can be written as a numerator and a denominator other than 1. Okay, fractions, all that fun stuff. Okay, so within the realm of real numbers, we have our rational, we have our rational numbers, but then over here we have our irrational numbers. What are irrational numbers, Ms. Griggs? Well, irrational numbers are numbers that are decimals. Dadgummit, why do I keep doing that? Sorry. Decimals that don't repeat. In other words, see, like if you'll think about 1/3, 1/3 is 0.333333333. See, those are repeating decimals because the same number repeats over and over. So these are decimals that don't repeat. They don't have that feature, okay? So decimals that don't repeat and don't terminate. So they go on forever, is what I'm saying. So a good example of a non-repeating, non-terminating decimal would be something like the square root of 2, pi, etc. Okay, so under this umbrella of real numbers, we have our rational numbers and our irrational numbers. And then out here, we've got our non-real numbers or imaginary numbers. That's just to help you out in case you have forgotten all that basic stuff.